Floyd Schneider here. Welcome to my podcast, my Bible podcast, theology podcast, and pretty much anything else I choose to talk about in the future. At the moment, we're going to start with Gospel of John, and I spend far more time asking questions than giving answers because the text eventually answers most of our questions anyway, and I don't want to be redundant. The Gospel of John, chapter 1. Verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Which beginning are we talking about? Have there been more than one beginnings? Was there something before the beginning? Is it a specific time or era or the beginning of time? Did time have a beginning? The Word. So whenever the beginning started, the Word was already there. So what's a word? Well, not the best question. What do we use words for? To communicate. Okay, the Word was with God. So we have two beings here, the Word and God, and they were both together. And then the Word was God. Well, how can you have something exist and then be it by itself at the same time and be with itself at the same time? Confusing. We'll have to keep reading. The Word, however, was God. So why would the writer of this book, John, call God the Word? Why not call him love or faithful or nice or kind or good or justice? Why the Word? Well, again, go back to why do we use words? To communicate. So is John saying that God wants to communicate? He's a communicative being. Well, if he is, that would make him more personal than impersonal. So not like Star Wars and the Force, where you just kind of feel it, but there's going to be some sort of communication involved. So if God wants to communicate, and he's a personal being, then obviously we want to ask, what does he want to communicate, and to whom? The to whom is probably human, so it may be broader than that. What does he want to communicate isn't answered in this verse. Verse 2, he was in the beginning with God. So the Word, he was in the beginning with God. So both existed. When the beginning happened, they were already on the scene. All things came into being through him, through the Word or through God. And apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. So what's the word all mean? Well, synonym, everything, air, people, life, animals, stars, universe, anything that exists came into being through him. And John seems to want to reiterate that, emphasize that, because he says it twice, and apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. So if this is true, then we owe our existence to God who created us out of nothing. Verse 4, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. In him. So probably in the Word, it could be in God, it could be both, since they're both apparently one and the same and yet different. But the concept of life, what is life? Well, it's the opposite of death. But life itself is an entity thing that we breathe and we relate and we think. And without life, we wouldn't have any of that. But are there different levels of life? Well, there's plant life, animal life, human life, but are there any levels below plant life? Well, of course, there's cell life, very small. But that raises the question, is there any kind of life above human life in the supernatural realm? Again, we're not told, but this very idea of life itself that exists in all beings that are alive existed in itself in him, in God or in the Word. And this life that existed in his very being was the light of men. Well, what is light? Well, is it particles? Is it waves? Is it personal? What does light do? It reveals, it shows things. It helps people see the invisible because of some darkness or whatever. But this says that this essence of life was actually the light of men. And if light is there to show us, reveal something, then this life is the thing that it wanted to reveal. Okay? Then normally, life itself needs light. Plants need light, humans need light. But this is reversed. This says basically that the light of men, that thing that reveals to men, actually comes out of the life that was in the Word or God. In verse 5, and this gets even better, the light shines in the darkness. Oh, what's darkness? Well, it's the absence of light. Well, that's not really a definition. Light can be measured, the speed, the weight, the form, but darkness can't be measured. Darkness can only be measured by the absence of light. So light is a substance, and darkness is simply the absence of that substance. And then it goes on to say the darkness did not overtake it. The darkness did not comprehend or destroy, overtake the light. That is fascinating. If you put a candle in a cabin in the forest, you light the candle, it's pitch black everywhere, the light overcomes the darkness. Darkness always leaves, it always loses. If light is really light, then darkness can never smother the light. But light will always win. And this darkness didn't overtake it, but what's also fascinating is in verse 4 it says this phrase, the light of men. And then it says, 5, the light shines in the darkness. Well, if light in 4 and light in 5 are still the same light, then is the text saying that men can be defined as darkness? And that the light wasn't just shining out in the woods where there was nothing but nothing, but it was actually shining inside of humans. And the darkness didn't get rid of it. Okay, a lot of good questions. The biggest one is, who is this Word who was with God and was in the beginning with God and created everything? Verse 6, there was a man having been sent from God whose name was John. Okay, so this isn't the light, or this isn't the Word, this is a normal human being. And he doesn't coexist with God or next to God. He's not God. He's been sent from God, like a messenger. And his name was John, it's a common name. And it's not the same John that wrote the book, but you can't know that. We have to keep reading. Verse 7, he came as a witness to bear witness about the light, so that all might believe through him. He came as a witness. Why do we have witnesses? To tell what really happened. We put a witness in the stand, and we ask them, were you there? Yes. Did you see it? Yes. Do you have personal experience of that happening? Yes. So we want the truth from witnesses. Can witnesses lie? Yes. If God sends a witness, would we assume that witness would lie? Well, probably not. That witness would be chosen by God because God wanted people to know the truth. He came to bear witness about the light, which is apparently the Word. So he wants to tell us about this thing that chases away darkness and that reveals itself in some way or reveals something to humans. His purpose, so that all might believe through him. The through him probably goes back to the light, but believe, that's a dangerous subject, an interesting word, because all might believe. Believe what? Somebody says, well, I just believe. That makes no sense. What do you believe in? Who do you believe in? What does belief actually mean? If you look up in the dictionary, you can find at least 4 definitions of the word believe. One is, I believe it's going to rain, which means I don't know what I'm talking about. That's a good way to say I'm talking about the weather. I believe it's going to rain, which means nothing. The second belief is looking forward to a situation, thinking you've done everything you can to make it turn out right, and you say to yourself, I really believe it's going to work out okay. You don't really know if it is or not, but this is hope. Believe means hope. But then after you go through that situation, and it did turn out, and you say, I believe that's going to work, actually work. That's more confidence. Believe meaning confidence. But there's a fourth kind of a belief, and that's like, I know this guy, he's a pilot, and he's a really good pilot, and I wouldn't have any fear flying with the guy at all. I believe he's enough of a good pilot that I'll get in the plane with him. So actually, I'm trusting him with my life as I get in that plane. So that's not the first belief, I believe it's going to rain. I don't know if he's a good pilot. That's not the second belief, well, I hope he's a good pilot. That's not the third one, well, I'm pretty confident. It's my life, folks. I'm not getting in the plane if I don't trust the guy. We have to ask every time we read the word believe in any book, the Bible or any other book, which definition are they talking about? Because I don't want to entrust myself to somebody when I'm not even sure what they're doing. So believe's a dangerous word. Make sure you understand the definition in context, no matter where you read that word. Verse 8, he was not the light. So the guy, this John guy that God sent wasn't the light himself, but he came to bear witness about the light. So we're clarifying here, the light is uniquely different than humans, because the light comes to shine, but this John guy came to tell us about the light. Verse 9, there was the true light, which coming into the world enlightens everyone. Now, this is a very interesting verse. True light. What does false light look like? It's not in itself darkness, or people would recognize it as darkness. Oh, that's dark and that's light. But can there be a light that is not true light? So what is the purpose of true light? To show us the truth. What would be the purpose of false light? Probably to deceive us. So is there false light? Keep reading. This true light coming into the world. World would probably be humanity here. Probably not became a rock, geology. Coming into humanity. And what does this true light do? It enlightens everyone. Everyone meaning everyone. Enlightens is also a unique word. There's two ways of saying light comes to someone. Externally, the light shines on you. Internally, something dawns on you. Externally, you get sunburned. Internally, you go, aha. This is an aha enlighten. We talk about a park being lit up. But when we say someone was enlightened, we mean internally. They got it. They something was revealed to them that they understood. And this says the true light actually enlightens everyone. Doesn't tell us what we've been enlightened with, but there's some things we know. It's one illustration I heard once that you walk into a dark room and you're looking for the light switch and you can't find it, but your hand is tapping on the wall and you're looking up at the ceiling. And all of a sudden you hit the light switch and boom, it comes on. And you're looking right into it. What do you see? Nothing. You're blind by looking straight into the light. But there's one thing you know beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's light. Yep. So the very least we could say about verse 9 is everybody knows that there's light. Verse 10, he was in the world. Yeah, verse 9 said he was coming into the world. Verse 10, he was in the world. And the world, we're going to assume here, is humanity. The world was made through him. We got that back in verse 3. And the world didn't know him. The world, humanity, didn't recognize who he really was. Didn't know him. Okay, that can be positive or negative. That can be neutral. Oh, I didn't know him. But verse 11 takes it a different twist. He came to what was his own. That could be humanity. That could be a certain group of people. And those who were his own did not receive him. Now that's different than not just knowing somebody. That's rejection. That's me looking at you and not even admitting you're there, just looking over your head as if you don't exist. That's rejection. I don't receive you. So you show up, you claim to be who you are, and I don't buy it. Verse 12. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, even to those who believe in his name. As many as all those people that have been enlightened in verse 9, everyone got enlightened. As many of those people who've been enlightened about the light received the light. And remember, that's not rejection, that's acceptance, understanding and acceptance. Received him. To them he gave the right to become children of God, even to those who believe in his name. There's that word believe again. Believe and receive are two different things in this verse. I believe something in my head, but I receive something in my heart, in me. I can believe something and not receive it. It's probably illogical to say I receive something I don't believe in. But how do you become a child? Well, you get born. And you didn't do anything to get born. You just were hatched. This says I have to become a child of God. That means I'd have to be born, but not physically. I'm already physically born. I've never met anyone who wasn't physically born. So to be born this second time, verse 13 tells us how it doesn't work. Not of blood. That would reference my heritage, my parents, my grandparents. They were great, great people, maybe preachers, maybe missionaries, maybe super duper guys. It makes no difference. Their heritage doesn't affect me being born a second time. Nor of the will of the flesh, I'm going to make myself into a child of God. I can do this. I can work hard. No, that's not going to work. The text says, no, that didn't work. And the third one's interesting because it says, nor of the will of man. That's not referring to me individually, but nobody else outside of me can tell me, I'm going to make you a child of God. I'm going to throw some water in your face or do a dipstick or something, and I'm going to say the magic words, and boom, you're a child of God. No. The only way to be born a second time, to become a child of God, is the last three words in verse 13. But of God. God has to birth us spiritually to make us his child. And that happens because we do what verse 12 says. We believe in his name and we receive him. Verse 14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, glory as the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. Now, verse 14 is fascinating because in all the religions that I've studied or taught, this concept of the Word becoming flesh, God, verse 1, the Word was God, God actually taking on a human body while at the same time staying God. That's very unique. That's not other religions. Other religions will talk about ghosts and that kind of stuff. But this is actually unique in that it's saying that God actually became a human but didn't stop being God. He was God, man at the same time. And it says he dwelt or lived among us. So the guy that's writing this, John, says, I know him. I met the guy. He lived right where I am. I mean, we spent time together. And we, the other people around him as well, beheld his glory, that he was uniquely different than other humans because he was God, glory as of the only begotten from the Father. This is a phrase that very few people understand what it means. It's hard to define. Theologians will differ over this idea of begotten, so we're not going to beat it to death. But whatever it means, he's the only one from the Father. Their relationship is unique to any other relationship with God. He was also full of grace and truth. And that's an interesting combination, because if you go to court, you get a speeding ticket or something, you go to court, and you're guilty, then you want grace. But if you're not guilty, you want truth. But the two don't tend to go together in a courtroom. And yet this is saying that this this Word that became flesh is full of both. So there's grace, which we need, and there's truth, which we usually don't want, but we can't get away from. Fascinating combination of these two in one person who is God and man. Verse 15, John bore witness about him and cried out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has been ahead of me, for he existed before me." So this guy John, back in verse 6, who gives witness to him, is saying that this Word becoming flesh guy existed before John existed. So that would be more than just a human. And in 16 he says, "For of his fullness we've all received grace upon grace." That verse is going to have to be explained as we read further, because there's a whole bunch of stuff in it. His fullness, we need a bigger picture of what this God-man was like, how he lived. And we've all received grace upon grace. That basically John is saying we are always in a situation where we need grace. We need help, if you will. And when we come to this guy, this God-man, we get tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of grace. Finally, in verse 17, "For the law was given through Moses," going way back to the Old Testament, the Mosaic law that God gave to Moses. But the law was a way of telling us how wrong we are and how we're never going to get it right. It was simply law. Whereas grace and truth came through, and here we have it, Jesus Christ. For the first time in the text, we have the name of the one who is the Word, the one that John came to testify about, the one who, God becoming flesh, human, and didn't stop being God. And that out of Jesus comes both of these two things, grace and truth. Grace we need. Sometimes our pride, arrogance, and stuff doesn't want grace, but we need it. But truth, that's a tough one, because truth tells us we need grace. And if we don't face the truth, we end up not getting the grace that we need. And both of these came through Jesus. It's kind of like love and judgment. They both exist in the same time. Love and justice. 18. No one has seen God at any time. We will take that as a physical, visible definition. No one has with eyeballs actually seen God. Okay? This only begotten God, depending on your text, it may say the only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has explained him. That expression, bosom of the Father, is a mother cuddling a little baby. As close as you can get to mom, that's as close as is possible, is that little baby. And so the relationship between the Father and Jesus is as close as possible for any two beings to have. The most fascinating thing about this verse is the last phrase. He has explained him. So it's like if God does something, we don't understand it. We look at Jesus. If Jesus does something, oh, that was God. That's how God acts. So if Jesus gets mad, that's how God gets mad. If Jesus shows love and mercy, oh, that's how God shows love and mercy. If Jesus says something, it's what God would say. If we find ourselves in a pickle and we say, God, I need some help here, and we start reading the Bible and we find that Jesus says this and this, well, that's what God would say to us. So we could, quote, talk to God about something when in fact the answer to our questions is whatever Jesus says. They are nip and tuck exactly together all the time. They think exactly alike, and anytime we have a question for God, Jesus gives us the answer in one shape or another. That's John 1:1-18. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you come back for John 1:19, and as far as we get, I will try to keep these under 30 minutes. Have a nice day. Bye.